Good evening and welcome to everyone who's present right now with us. We are one of India's top pharmaceutical companies. Apart from ensuring uninterrupted supply of medicines, we've been facilitating series of web-based dialogues between healthcare practitioners in India and leaders from different arenas to draw inspiration and to learn. In the last few months, we've had the Prime Minister of Bhutan, Sri Sadhguru, Sri Ravi Shankar, the Kargil War veteran, Colonel Lalit Rai, the two captains of the Indian cricket team, Kapil Dev and Sunil Gavaskar. We've also had Mary Kom and Sonu Sood, who've spoken to our healthcare fraternity. These are unprecedented times when uncertainty is perpetuating every day. This is one of the largest crises mankind has faced in the last century. Healthcare professionals have been working tirelessly. During these unprecedented times, we are experiencing anxiety, fear, pressures, exhaustion, isolation, and emotional trauma. The news and social media is filled with counts of death spiraling every passing day. Slowing infection and death statistics are knocking at our doors. As we hear cases from our communities all around us, and sometimes in our own families, we've got doomsday theorists who are floating around, who keep talking about, all the bad things that are likely to happen. A few more memes, or memes as they call it, videos in social media, is all that you need to trigger panic. Panic is spreading all around, including the healthcare professionals. While there is absolute reason to be careful, I think irrational fear is also gripping society. At Dr. Reddy's Foundation for Health Education, we want to bring a series of Abhaya Talks on dealing with these fears and anxieties. The first in the series of Abhaya Talks, we have the privilege of having with us Lieutenant General Satish Dua. Lieutenant General Satish Dua is now retired from the army, and he's been awarded with Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Sena Medal, and Vishisht Seva Medal. He retired as the Chief of the Integrated Defense Staff. As a Corps Commander in Srinagar, he was the one who planned and executed the surgical strikes in Kashmir in 2016. He's a counter-terrorism expert from 8 JNK Light Infantry. He's operated extensively in Jammu and Kashmir and Northeast. And during his 4 decades of service, he's also been a Commando instructor, and he's been an Attaché in Vietnam, a defense attaché in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. In his first book, India's Bravehearts, he's written a first-hand account about the lives and battles of frontline soldiers on the LOC. Good evening. My name is Anuj Reddy, Head of Commercial Excellence for Dr. Reddy's India, and I am your host for today. Welcome so much. Welcome to you, General Dua. It's a pleasure having you here.
Good evening, and thank you, Anuj. Jai Hind, everybody. It's such a nice feeling to be here amongst you all today. And I thank Dr. Reddy's for inviting me to have this interaction with you all, the doctors, the nurses, the medical fraternity, the pharma industry, those who are the corona warriors today. I am really looking forward to this interaction, and may I also congratulate Dr. Reddy's for the recent rollout of the Sputnik 5. Looking forward to the Sputnik Light as time progresses. Thank you, Anuj.
So before we start with your talk, I just thought I had a couple of questions just to break the ice a little. When I was listening to one of your TED Talks, I heard that you had left your first year MBBS to join the NDA. Basically a medical student to an army man. How did that happen?
Those days there were very limited options, and I applied for MBBS while I had also taken the examination for the National Defense Academy. I was very keen to join the services, but I secured the seat in MBBS and first, because this is the longest process and you have to go for SSB and then you have to go for a merit list, wait for the merit list. And when I got a seat in medical college, I went and enrolled myself in Government Medical College, Bellary in Karnataka. So I have, and it may interest the doctors and others to know, I have, I beg your pardon, have gone through the Gray's Anatomy and have done a bit of dissection for the first semester with Cunningham's manual. But seriously speaking also, somebody had given me a book called Reach for the Sky by Paul Brickhill. It was such an inspirational book about a British RAF pilot during World War II. He was a legless pilot, having lost both his legs in different accidents, air crashes. And yet he was an ace pilot. Not only that, he was actually shot down over Germany. He was taken a prisoner of war, and he would escape from every prison that they would put him in. So I was so inspired by that story that when I got a call letter to join the NDA, I managed to convince my parents to let me jump tracks, and I have never regretted it ever since.
That's very interesting, sir. So I'll before you start your talk, just one last question, and then we'll get into your talk. Since we're talking about books, your book India's Braveheart was published in December. To quote from the book, because it's very profound, I thought I'll just quote from it and get your opinion on it. It says, when a soldier goes to battle, he knows he may not return, or that his battle wounds may cripple him for life. He operates under the concept of unlimited liability. But he has no time to think about such things. He cannot have fear in his life. He cannot think about his family or his children. He only thinks about the success of his mission. So we're seeing a similar phenomena with our healthcare professionals right now. So can you draw parallels between the two?
Absolutely. Tell me, Anuj, how much price can you put on a man's life, a person's? I don't think you'll be able to take a shot at it.
Yeah.
Realize that. And that is why it is unlimited liability. Like you read, he is prepared for it. His family is prepared for it. Now that is the good part. If his family is prepared for it, that means, if he loses his life, he or she loses life, it is not only he who will suffer. It is also the family, his wife, his children, his siblings, his parents, his extended family. So there is much more to stake at stake. So that is why this is the concept of unlimited liability. What I want to draw a parallel now, today,
Looks like we're having some problem with General's connectivity. So just
help us fight.
Sir, could I request you to repeat what you just said? We lost you for the last 1 minute.
Oh.
You were speaking about unlimited liability when we lost you. I mean, we lost the audio.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect, sir.
Right. So let me just pick up threads over there. When I was talking about unlimited liability, today the Corona warriors, you all, the healthcare fraternity, you all also are serving with the concept of unlimited liability. So many of you are fighting with the virus, knowing, exposing themselves to the risk, knowing fully well that they are at risk, that their family members stand to also get contaminated. They haven't gone home for months. There are so many who've lost their lives, and this is a phenomenon in every country around the world. There are so many of the health fraternity, the corona warriors who've lost their lives battling this in order to save lives. So that is the concept of unlimited liability, which you all are experiencing up close yourself to. Anuj?
Sure, sir. No, thank you so much. I think, those were my first two questions before, the talk starts. So I now hand it over to you, sir. Would love to hear your thoughts. And of course, we will spend a decent amount of time around anxiety, fear, because I mean, this is something that a soldier sees every time. So, even if you cover it as part of your talk, we would still want to have a lot more questions in that area. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anuj. We are going through an unprecedented crisis. The world is going through an unprecedented crisis. And today, everyone is experiencing what soldiers experience on the battlefield, the fear of the unknown and constant anxiety it produces. We soldiers often experience the death of a comrade in battle. Today, in this pandemic situation, death has touched everyone, some from far and some very close. 2 years ago, when I gave a talk to doctors at Apollo hospitals, I remember starting off by saying, we work in different fields, different environments. And then I went on to talk about organizational goals. But today, we both, you and I, we both are frontline soldiers. We risk our lives. We soldiers risk our life to fight the enemy on the borders, whereas you are fighting an invisible enemy in this pandemic. You all are the corona warriors, also risking lives to save lives. Today, when many people are working from home or simply not stepping out to keep themselves safe, imagine what would happen if doctors don't go to work? What would happen if nurses, ambulance drivers don't work? What would happen if the policemen don't go for work, or the firefighters? So many other such people from different walks of life. If industrial workers don't go, who will produce oxygen and many other things? So nowadays, more than ever before, motivation of frontline is the key. My frontline is made up of soldiers, and they have to be motivated enough to risk their lives. Not profits, not productivity, not targets, not timelines, but their very own existence. Or worse still, they could be grievously wounded and crippled for life. Imagine on a snow-covered glacial mountain, icy winds are blowing up a snowstorm at an altitude of 21,000 feet, where men get short of breath because of lack of oxygen. And this is something that everyone understands today. We have reached close to our objective after a very long and arduous and a very risky march. The temperature is minus 30 degrees centigrade. And our objective is an enemy post. And now one asks for volunteers to lead the attack, that post that we have to capture. All soldiers realize that while everyone is equally at risk, to be to get hit by enemy firing. Yet, out of the front, two or three soldiers in the lead, the chances of taking a direct enemy bullet hit or blowing up a foot on a minefield, the chances are extremely high, almost certain. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, and yet we always have more volunteers to lead than we need. What, why does a soldier do what he does? What makes him want to put himself in harm's way? Is it the pay, that is salary? Is it patriotism? What is it? Let me try and demystify a soldier's bravery. We have a great sense of belonging. We cultivate it, we nurture it, a great sense of belonging and regimentation in the army. Whether it's a football match or a rifle firing competition, boys go to great lengths to see their unit win. Now, why is winning so important to us? Winning is important to us because in my profession, there are no runners-up. Those who don't win often end up dead. No silver medalists here. And that is why we want that spirit. And that is why winning is important. When it comes to wars or encounters with terrorists, we look up to the rich history and traditions of the battalion, the battle honors and the gallantry awards that they have won in the past. And we want to exceed that. To explain, let me take the example of my own battalion. I am from 8th Battalion, the Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry, 8 JAK LI for short. My battalion was raised as a volunteer force during the 1947-48 operations in J&K, Jammu and Kashmir. In 1971 war, my battalion held on to their defenses in the area of Cham in J&K when all other units around them fell back. And today, we have that defenses where my battalion held on to the west of River Munawar as a strategic launch pad on the other side of the river. My battalion was awarded 2 battle honors, 3 weeks, and several gallantry awards. What are battle honors? Battle honors are given by the Government of India to those battalions, units, which perform exceedingly well in face of the enemy attacks. In 1987, my battalion successfully executed the highest attack in the world. At Siachen Glacier, at 21,153 feet, we captured what is today known as Bana Top. Honorary Captain Bana Singh was awarded Paramveer Chakra. We got 1 Mahavir Chakra, 7 Veer Chakras, several Sena medals, and a whole long list of other awards. In 2001, for a 3 years tenure of 98 to 2001, my battalion got a unit citation for setting a record of 106 terrorist and enemy kills on the line of control in J&K. What is a unit citation? Unit citation is a peacetime equivalent of battle honor for performing exceedingly well in operations. Incidentally, I was the commanding officer in that tenure. In 2006, my battalion went to Sudan and served under the UN for 1 year when it was a single unified country. In 2007, back in J&K, in North Kashmir, my battalion won 1 Ashok Chakra, which is the highest peacetime award, equivalent of Paramveer Chakra, and several other awards on the line of control. In 2014, my battalion was selected to serve as President's bodyguard and served in Rashtrapati Bhavan for 3 years. I'm sure you could hear the pride in my voice when I talk about my battalion, and every Jawan, every officer, every man of the battalion wants to keep that spirit alive, wants to exceed what others have done, and would never let the battalion down. He'd rather die than let his battalion down. So a man, and this is just one battalion. There are around 400 such battalions. Every battalion has its own unique history, its own traditions, its own glorious past. And then there are artillery battalions, armored units, and so many more. So what drives us is what a man dies for, is that Paltan ki Izzat. Endearingly, we call our battalion as Paltan, that Paltan ki Izzat, the flag of the regiment. And I would call it a high sense of self-esteem or a collective self-esteem. I think it is that which drives us. Let me introduce you to something, a story with which you can connect better. Let me talk about narrate a story about a hospital. In Srinagar, the military base is at Badami Bagh cantonment, and there is a base hospital there, 92 BH. That hospital inspires a lot of faith in soldiers deployed in Kashmir. And you can understand the casualties that we get, the patients that we get in Kashmir are not lifestyle diseases. We get mostly trauma cases, gunshot wounds, landmine blasts, grenade injuries, rocket injuries, artillery shelling, hypothermia, chilblains, frostbite. With these kind of patients, there is a faith that goes around among soldiers that if you reach this hospital alive, you will live. That's how good the hospital is, its medical care, the dedication of its doctors and staff is. It's a very tall claim to live up to. And anyone who's posted to that hospital, he finds himself or herself getting caught up in that ethos and find themselves voluntarily and willingly wanting to keep up the good work. Let me, for the sake of interest, describe to you the battle procedure, how these medical warriors act when they get a casualty. The base hospital almost acts as if it has a life of its own, as if it's an organism that comes to life when it is needed to save lives. When a gun battle takes place anywhere, the casualty is evacuated mostly by helicopter. And the moment the helicopter takes off from that site of operations, a hooter is sounded in the base hospital. And everyone starts converging to their action stations: doctors, nurses, anesthetists, surgeons, other support staff. Everyone starts coming there. And it is very automatic that everyone is ready to receive the patient. They are overworked because of so many ceasefire violations and violent activities and firings, etc., that's going on in the valley. They are very overworked, but they are always very, very patient with the patients. And they really live up to that ethos, which the soldiers have entrusted them with. If you get there alive, you will live. That's another good example of collective self-esteem. So maybe all organizations, including corporate world, should not underestimate the value of company history, past successes, and use that to achieve greater glories. Instituting a system of incentives, rewards for his workers. If you have an employee of the month posted his or her photograph posted on the website or in the reception lobby, and if he or she is allowed to use the executive lift or the front entrance, these are small incentives that count for a lot. Let me now talk about the paratroopers, the parachute regiment. They are specialized soldiers who who are launched in behind the enemy territory, who jump with a parachute close to the objective. All special forces troops around the world are paratroopers. When a paratrooper jumps using a parachute, the chute is the packing of the chute is a very specialized task. Remember, it is only his parachute between him and death. So the packing of the chute has to be done very diligently. If there is a little tear or twist in the fabric, if the nylon ropes are slightly entangled, the parachute will not open and it will result in near certain death. So when a paratrooper jumps out of the plane with the parachute on his back, he is placing his life, his faith in the diligence and dedication of an unknown man. Now, why did I bring that up over here? Because a, a doctor, a specialist, can prescribe a line of treatment, can perform surgeries, other procedures. But it is a pharmaceutical industry that provides medicines and manufactures all the medicines that are required for the patients to recover. And other such industries are required as support, which make medical equipment. So what they are like those who pack the chute. This support is essential. This larger teamwork is really essential. This is the time when things seem to be going wrong, when there is spread of COVID virus, or whether it is the lack of hospital beds, whether it is lack of oxygen, lack of vaccines. It is easy to get despondent when things are going wrong in a big way. We soldiers experience that often. Remember Uri? It happened when I was the co-commander in Kashmir, as Anuj mentioned. You may recall that in a suicide attack on 18th of September 2016, four suicide terrorists managed to enter an army camp uh, very close to the LOC in Uri, North Kashmir, and killed 18 soldiers. It was a black day for me, a black Sunday. I can never wipe out that sad day's memory from my life, from my mind. The whole country was incensed. There was anger in the nation against Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. The leadership was agitated. My soldiers wanted revenge, and we decided to turn that pain into an opportunity. That very afternoon, the Raksha Mantri landed up in Kashmir. Late Mr. Manohar Parrikar. Oh, he wanted to go to Uri, to the site, and I advised him against it strongly because it was not safe as yet. The fires were still burning there. So back in my headquarters, and finally when I briefed him in the office, my office, in presence of the army chief and the Northern Army commander, we convinced him and we got clearances to do what we did, and surgical strikes happened. That has changed the way India responds. It has set the stage, and it set the stage for Balakot strikes 3 years later. So all failure need not be seen as failure or seen as failure alone. Look for opportunities in every failure. Don't see how many times you have failed, how many times you fail. Show a determination to pick yourself up again and again. That calls for leadership. That calls for passion. That calls for teamwork. Team building is very important. In the army, we take care of the entire ecosystem as far as team building is concerned, including the families. The family of a serving soldier enjoys decent perks and privileges when the soldier is in service. And if a soldier dies in the line of duty, while no one can make up for the sad loss, the family is compensated well in financial terms. In fact, there is a morbid joke that goes around that a worth of a dead soldier is more than a living one. But it's not only the money. We keep in touch with the families, uh, education of the children, their weddings, and let me narrate. I once went to attend the wedding of the daughter of Naib Subedar Chunilal of my battalion. He got a Ashok Chakra. He is the highest decorated soldier in the Indian Army. Naib Subedar Chunilal, Ashok Chakra, Veer Chakra, Sena Medal. No one has this high an award list. He got the Veer Chakra when I was the commanding officer, and we had been through many gun battles together, many operations on the LOC together. But in 2007, in North Kashmir, he was awarded Ashok Chakra posthumously. And in 2015, I went to attend his daughter's wedding. His house is in a remote mountains village in Bhadrawa district, in J&K. I was a co-commander that time, but I went by a chopper to a helipad. From there, I had to go by a road on a kacha dusty track up the mountain for about half an hour in a gypsy. And thereafter, I had to walk for about half an hour, 40 minutes up to his village for the wedding. But I did go there. And it was very satisfying to be there with him. What is our link? Our link was that we had been in several gun battles together 20 years ago. That is the kind of bonding we have with the families. Just a thought. Within the corporate constraints, just see how much personalized contact you all can indulge in. When we get to the stage of socializing, and if you have events with families, the families and children will bond. And that throws up its own dynamic. I can tell you that with my own experience in this large family of Indian Army. It is a low investment, high gain idea. How much investment can an occasional social get together or a picnic lunch cost or mean? Not even a fraction of the value that it can add to the cohesion in your setup. Before I start interacting with Anuj, I want to talk about one very important facet. Let me try and talk about or point out the difference between warriors and workers. In the best of the teams, in the best of the companies, and the best of environments, the most motivated worker will give his best to achieve the goal, will work tirelessly, could also be at the expense of his family life if need be, will travel across the globe for work and everything in between. Yet he or she will not be willing to die for the company. Maybe the company also doesn't want him or her to. But even if he's drawing a salary of ₹1 million a month or more and hefty privileges and perks, yet he is not willing to give up his life for his company. But for ₹40,000 and no bonus, a soldier will willingly give up his life for his battalions, his paltan ki izzat, for his country. Where lies the difference? Why? Why so? There is a higher cause in defending one's country. Higher cause motivates sacrifice. When you watch a Hollywood movie and you see a firefighter going in burning inferno, he does not know the people he's saving, but then he's willing to sacrifice. At that moment, he gets caught up in that higher cause. He's going to save some people whom he does not know and going to perhaps risk his life and make his children orphan. Sometimes you see in a hostage situation in a movie where someone stands up to save the others, the hostages. It is the higher cause. Higher cause motivates sacrifice. And higher cause, ladies and gentlemen, is found in few professions like army, medical fraternity. You all are living it now. We soldiers have always experienced it. We lived because of the reassurance you all provided us. I told you the story of the hospital. There are several such stories, selfless stories of the medical fraternity. I personally have experienced that. So this higher cause is there in the medical fraternity. You are the heroes. This breeds a sense of fulfillment. And to conclude, let me say that however, I have always maintained as a soldier, however modern and advanced a weapon system may be, or the technical equipment may be, the soldiers who operate them matter more. However technically, technologically, or commercially sophisticated you may get, it is the teamwork of your frontline workers, your frontline, other workers that will decide success. And it is for leaders to find ways to motivate the frontline, especially in these uncertain times. And I'm sure Anuj is going to quiz me on that. And before signing off, I yield the floor to Anuj. I'm all yours, Anuj. I salute all you frontline workers, the Corona warriors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. This was very inspirational. I'm quite certain that there are huge parallels that we can draw from what you've done in the army and what the healthcare workers are currently experiencing. So we've got some questions from the audience that we've given. We'd asked them for questions, so some of them have mailed it to us. Let me just try to bucket questions and ask you, questions that are similar in nature. So I think the first one that I think we wanted to address upfront is of course the one that we spoke about, connected with fear, right? So there are two questions here which I'd want to take together. This might take a little longer to read out, but yeah. So an officer has to lead his troops boldly, take decisions, even when he has no clear direction, deal with his emotions and hide his own fears. Somewhat similar to the situation that people in the front line of this pandemic are currently facing. So that's one question, or let's say a statement that's been put out here. We wanted your response on this. And the second one is around more of the fear being important. And of course, there are two extremes of the fear. One, you've got the COVIDiots who compromise their own safety of their families, their health, their well-being, etc., by being totally reckless. On the other hand, you've got people who have got these irrational fears and becoming a little paranoid, getting scared of all messages that are floating around. Where's the balance between these two extremes? And how do you navigate in these two situations? So these are two questions, sir, that I've picked up from the fear part of it.
Well, thank you, Anuj. Very thought-provoking, certainly. And so I am not going to be able to give you any analyzed research, but let me, with my experience, talk about certain aspects which are very relevant and which are simple to understand in daily lives. Firstly, let me just break down fear and courage as I see it. Fear is not, I beg your pardon, courage is not absence of fear. Courage involves overcoming fear. And there is a difference. A little fear is required to nudge you as a part of self-preservation. So So when you talk of some who are COVIDiots, as they're called, those who are reckless, uh, we have to understand the difference between being foolhardy and audacious. If a man jumps, if a man darts across a speeding bus very close, he is being foolish, and that's foolhardy. But if a man darts across in front of a speeding bus to save a child, that's audacious. So, if today there is someone who does not follow the COVID protocols or who says that the vaccine is not important, he is risking his life, he's risking the life of his family, he's risking others, and that is not warranted in today's times. Talking of fear, as in like your first question, tended more on what leadership can be provided in these times when everyone is going through such different shades of fear. My suggestion is I have read something called Stockdale's paradox. I've read about it, and which says, have faith, but confront reality. That is the gist of it. Have faith. So that means it's talking about faith and fear together. Our fears are real, but we need to have faith. Now, I know it's very easy for me to say we need to have faith, but it's very difficult in these times. So I'm just going to read out one sentence. You must, and this is, let me first give you the background. This is Admiral James Stockdale. He was an American prisoner of war in Vietnam during Vietnam War. and as you brought out, I've served in Vietnam for 3 years, and I've sort of heard about him and read about him there. You must never, and I quote now, you must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end with discipline to confront the most brutal fact of your current reality, whatever that may be. So he's talking of two different things. One is the faith that you will prevail. Now that's in the current context, I would say you have to have faith that we will prevail. We will come out of COVID. We will overcome. True, we've already lost a lot. There will be further losses. There will be more losses along the way, but we all, mankind, will come out of it. Dr. Reddy's are making medicine. Doctors and healthcare fraternity is overcoming it. People will get together and follow the norms and whatever else it takes. And so that is the faith that is required. When he was asked by a journalist, I'm going to read out one more sentence. When Admiral Stockdale was asked by a writer, this is his reply. Asked as to how he kept his, how did he manage to stay there with keeping his sanity alive for so long, for years. I never lost faith. I quote, I never lost faith in the end of the story. I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end and turn the experience into defining event of my life. Unquote. The lesson here is that we must differentiate the two. One is the end story and one is what we need to do now. And as to your question, or that part of the question which says what can the leaders do today? And it is my suggestion or advice, some of which I have experienced myself, and some one has been reading about these things nowadays. In last 1 year, all of us have been reading articles and books on this. When we are in a work from home scenario, or not, but in a work from home scenario more so, when people are not coming so much in contact with each other, with their workforce, with their teams, it is very important to have those occasional meetings. It is very important for the leader not to shy away from that. It is very important for the team leader to connect with everyone and preferably together, and to reiterate what are the goals, what have been decided, how you want to amend the goals in keeping with the situation. If somebody brings out that they've had a situation, COVID related or otherwise, in their family, how do you want to reassign responsibilities within the team? It is very important for everyone to cling or to reinforce their professional identity so they feel connected with the job, they feel connected with the goal. Otherwise, it's very easy to lose focus and get despondent by with so much of negativity that is going around. Some true and some exaggerated, because we only hear the negative stories, the sad stories. Thank you, Anuj.
Thank you, sir. So the next questions, I think, if I was to bunch them together, are the most obvious ones, sir. So I think every Indian is very, very proud of what happened, as part of the surgical strikes that we undertook under your command. Um, I mean, we also know that there were absolutely no collateral damages that happened. People went in and came back without losing a single individual or losing a single soldier. What went into the planning? So I know this is not related to what we're talking, but maybe there's similarities. And what went into it? How did you achieve that?
So, Anuj, very frankly, that was really a stupendous operation, and I must salute all the soldiers who went across and all those who supported them. It is the credit goes to them. We had only 10 days. 18th of September was the Uri attack, terror attack at Uri. And on 28th night, we launched that. Everyone counts the date as 29th because it happened. We finished it up on 29th morning. So during these 10 days, I must first start by the free hand that the leadership gave us. That was unprecedented. When I say free hand, having given the go ahead, the choice of the timing, the date, the target, the extent, the scope, everything was left to the operational commanders. That is us. So which is which was very good, which helped. The training of these special forces, they always are ready with plans. And the special forces, I was talking about the special forces when I spoke about their paratroopers. They are really special forces. They are so well motivated, so well trained, prepared for all contingencies, that you just have to indicate to them the target. And we are very nearly assured of success all the time. You will understand that I will not be able to share more details with you, operational details. All I would like to say is that I think sometimes you need to harness the power of positivity. And that time I remember I would forbid anyone. I said, please don't even use a negative sentence. Don't harbor any doubts. Just think positive. We can and we will. And but I must confess that that night in the operations room, all I was praying more for the safe return than for success of the operation. It may seem strange to all those who are listening to me, but never in our wildest dreams did we imagine this will happen. What? And let me quote something that I've written in the book, that Mr. Parikar, God rest his soul, he asked me that time in my office. Once he gave a go ahead, he said, but there should be no casualties to own soldiers. And I said, yes, sir, I agree with you. There should be no casualties to own soldiers. But I cannot guarantee anything. This is war. Anything can happen. And in keeping with that, and there he just said one word. He thought for a moment, and I almost thought that I lost it and he may withdraw permission. But he just said, Barobar. And I think even I did not imagine that we will have no casualties. I'm being very candid about it. It's an occupational hazard, and some amount of casualties would be expected and accepted, I thought. But fortune favors the brave. I think it was such a fantastic feeling that 100% of our soldiers came back without a scratch, having inflicted heavy damage, and the rest, as they say, is history. Thank you, Anuj.
Thank you, sir. I'm so tempted to say, how's the Josh? So,
When it comes to now we are reduced to this virtual format. Whenever I've been giving talk to youth or colleges or auditoriums full of people, it always starts like that.
perfect, sir. So the next question is about resources, and as soldiers you're trained to operate in conditions where you've got extreme lack of resources, and what we're noticing right now, lack of resources out there, especially a lot of medicines not being available, oxygen cylinders not being available. Very similar situation. I think there is a sense of despair, but this is something that the army faces, lack of resources a lot of times. So how do you overcome that?
Frankly, Anuj, academically and technically speaking, there is there is no other recourse if there are no resources. But it is your team spirit. It is a larger understanding that we need to make do with whatever we have. For instance, every informed citizen does keep reading year after year about the fact that army or armed forces lament about the cut in the budget, or the budget is less for modernization, and we don't have so many ships or aircrafts or platforms or tanks or guns, and we keep we keep asking for more. But it's a developing country and they have to draw their own balances, etc. So we are always have uh, I wouldn't use the word inadequate resources, but I would say we always want more. So you're right. We make do with what we have often. And I suppose there is, uh, when there is no other way out, it's only to do with ins- inspirational leadership. I remember in one of our posts in on the LOC once long ago, uh, and then there are constraints that are imposed because of weather. A helicopter cannot fly. The weather is bad. It cannot pick up a casualty or cannot drop oil or rations. Sometimes the posts are cut off, or because of enemy shelling, you cannot reach out logistically to them. It is heartbreaking when a post is does not have either rations or fuel or ammunition. And it is so heartwarming when you hear your platoon commander or a JCO from there says, and it happens often, don't worry साहब, जब तक हम हैं, जब तक एक भी आदमी है, कुछ नहीं होगा. I mean, it is just that spirit that carries you beyond. I know it is tough. All of that may not be applicable when today, if oxygen is lacking in a place, or if someone is not getting a hospital bed situation, it's a dire situation. But I really don't have any answers. There are no easy answers in this. If there were, I'm sure we would have applied those solutions. There are no easy answers. It only calls for two things. One, inspiring leadership. And inspiring leadership does not, it crisis throws up unexpected leaders. There could be a leader in a ward boy. There will be a leader in a nurse. There will be leader in a good Samaritan who comes out from outside and he will start helping others than the patient he brought. There are so many things that will happen because we are hearing only the sad stories. We are hearing the touching sob stories. We are not hearing the good stories because I think negativity sells. So I think there are no easy answers, Anuj.
Sure, sir. No, I understand. So very related question. So I'll just build on the question that I just asked you. When the chips are down, how do we keep our warriors motivated? Obviously you've got we often hear these words: don't despair when you're upset. Look for opportunities in failure. But how do you in the army do that? I mean, obviously statements are useful, but are there other ways of motivating your troops, making sure that they're up to the task?
Well, let me put it this way. In the army, we are trained to do that. We take pride in doing that. We take pride in the fact that while the going gets tough, the tough get going. When we are up against the wall, and we take pride in saying we will not give up till the last man, last round, as we call it. I understand that it does not apply similarly to today's scenario, the medical fraternity, because a doctor or a nurse is trying to save somebody, and if they don't have adequate equipment, they can't, despite the best of the care. I understand that. So what can they do? It is when you talk about how leadership motivates people, it's only to say that, and that is where there will not be set solutions. Satish Dua or Anuj Reddy cannot give answers. And that is where leadership comes out with its own solutions. That is leadership. If it could be taught in courses and classes, then we would be making leaders. That is why leaders are thrown up. Sometimes very unassuming people assume leadership roles. That's what happened when chips are down. It's 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 always unpredictable, and that is why it's called leadership. That is why leadership is an art.
Sure, sir. Thank you. That was, very nice. So there's another question. This is more from, the pharmaceutical industry, because of course we've got the entire medical fraternity here, and we want to be addressing them. Some of our frontline employees are also on this, are listening to you right now. So we at Dr. Reddy's are a part of the industry itself, the pharmaceutical industry. And frontline employees like us, and also our peer companies, are trying to make life-saving medicines available and reach the needy. They have a huge sense of responsibility and a sense of service. They also demonstrate a great sense of urgency. And I might say that they've been, along with the medical fraternity, trying to save thousands of lives. Any message that you would want to give to, some of our folks here from the pharmaceutical industry?
Uh, let me start by saying that this is really teamwork. All of you sitting here, if you take your mind to a football team, it is the forwards who score the goal, and it goes in their names. So he was the highest scorer. But remember, it is always teamwork. They wouldn't be able to score the goal if the support team, the halves, did not give them a pass. And if they got the passes and they kept scoring goals, yet the team could lose. If the defense was weak and they also kept conceding goals, if the goalkeeper was weak and we kept conceding goals. So it is teamwork that matters. And your support matters the most. I know that if I go as a patient to someone and I would only talk about saying that, oh, so and so was a very good surgeon or a very good specialist, and I got the best of the care in the medicines. And I will not say it was this medicine that helped and this happened. It is bound to happen that way, just like we talk about who scored the runs and who scored the goals. But it is teamwork that is required. The team knows that. You and I know that. The rest, everyone knows that. And my message to the pharmaceutical industry, to all the support staff, to other medical equipment and other people who support, to all of you, is that without you, neither the patient nor we, nor the doctors, nor the higher-ups would have gone anywhere. So keep packing the parachute with due diligence, because when the paratrooper jumps, it is your packing that parachute well that helps. And I salute each one of you. It is very important for us to recognize the unsung heroes. You are the unsung heroes. You and many more who are behind scenes. They are the unsung heroes. There are some heroes who are celebrated and some who are unsung. The unsung hero is very important, and I salute you. Jai Hind.
So I'm taking the liberty of asking a question that maybe you may want to answer, may not. I leave that to you, but I will ask you the same. I will ask you the question anyways. I think we've had questions around, the current situation that we've got at the on the China border, and what are your thoughts there? I mean, you can choose not to answer, but whatever we just inquisitive, and I know a lot of our doctors are inquisitive about what's happening out there and what your thoughts were. You've served there. You've been responsible for the entire area, so your thoughts would be very useful.
So, what has happened? First of all, I choose to answer, and um, what has happened in Ladakh last year? In fact, before that, what has happened is that, without expanding the discussion, China uh, sees India as an adversary in the regional dynamic, as the only adversary in the regional dynamic. So when we had 3 years ago, when we had this issue at Doklam, when India stopped Chinese advance towards the Bhutan border, because we are treaty bound with Bhutan to take care of the security needs. They don't have an adequate army, a strong enough army. So when we did not, seeing our resolve, we stood resolutely, and they had to stop their advance at Doklam. 3 years later, that is in 2020, last year, in Ladakh, they tried to impose their will by coming into places that they had no business of being in, and it led to bloody clashes. It led to casualties on both sides. We are a transparent democracy. We declared, they did not. What is this whole thing about? The whole thing was about the fact that Chinese were objecting to our constructing road networks on our side of the border, while they have constructed their road networks. Why should they be objecting to our to construction of road network on our side? So once again, taking that as a crutch or excuse, they launched their operations, in which we stopped them very resolutely, and we build up forces which perhaps they did not imagine we would. And eventually they had to stall whatever they had planned, and they had to pull back. Now, while both sides have only have not really have de-escalated a little bit, but have not totally disengaged, what China did not count on was that this is nowadays our paradigm is slightly different, whether it is LOC, that is shown by surgical strike, the Balakot air strikes, or whether it is the LAC with China. We've stood resolutely and firm. And also, perhaps they did not count on the fact that during our pandemic, we will be able to focus so much on our security needs. On the other hand, with with our arrangements with our friendly countries like US, Japan, Australia, the formulation of Quad and some other countries in the Southeast Asia, in East Asia. So with all these arrangements and alliances, not really formal alliances, but the arrangements that we are forming with this dynamic, I think at some places China is feeling the pressure. The last sentence I would like to say, as far as India is concerned, India has shown its resolve. Indian armed forces have shown their capability, and we are resolute. We are quite capable of ensuring the territorial integrity of our borders, whether we are in a pandemic situation or not. Anuj?
Thank you so much, sir. This has been a wonderful session. I'm quite certain that everyone out here has gained something out of this. Any last words, before we wrap up the conversation, sir? I picked up a lot of different things from this conversation. I think one of the things that will always stick with me is the definition that you made of courage. Also, I was something that's really going to, stay with me is the person who wraps the parachute, who prepares it. That's another thing that I found very, very intriguing, and that will remain with me. And also the Paltan ki Izzat, how do we make sure that we've got a common cause that everyone's going towards, are driving towards, and how can we create uh, the experience that there's a common goal. Anything that you'd want to cover that before we sign off, sir?
I think, Anuj, all I would like to leave you with a thought now that you sort of you put a few thoughts in place in the end. I all I would like to say that there are many lessons from the battlefield that the corporate world can pick up, and a lot of them uh, are very low investment ideas. Like I said earlier while talking about a particular thing, somehow by adopting this, the teamwork, the camaraderie, uh, the value additions that you have in these aspects can actually increase your outputs and help the outcomes. So I think there are lessons to be learned, and the corporate world should also remember that all the corporate strategy, the word strategy itself, also everything is actually from the military. The operation strategy, the OR, the boardroom strategies, everything is actually. So there are lessons to be learned here. I would just like to say that I salute the soldiers on the border, but today, more than ever before, and at the expense of reputation, I say that we soldiers always valued the medical fraternity much more than anyone else. Only a good patient can do it. But today, the whole world is realizing it. And from me, a general salute to all of you, the Corona warriors who risk their lives to save lives of others. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Jai Hind.